right. How's it going, everyone? This is Marcus Risen, and this is the Risen High podcast. This is my first official, episode of this podcast. And today we are doing an NBA mock draft for the 2022 NBA season. And with me today, I have Tommy Yarrish. Tommy, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. How's summer been? Treating you well?
Summer's been treating me well, man. I'm on a trip with my family. Just wrapped up going to Atlanta and Sarasota. Some college visits for my sister. Heading back to the H, and just looking forward to relaxing the rest of the summer. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good. Just been working, preparing for this draft. I just been in Austin. I got a new job, so that's cool. I'll be working.
Yeah, tell the people about your job, man. I was excited for you.
I guess this is an official announcement. I hadn't announced it on any of my socials yet, but I'm going to be working in Midland, Texas, which is 5 hours away from Austin, as a multi-skilled journalist. So that's pretty cool.
Clap it up, folks. Clap it up.
I don't if you're listening to it, Tommy is clapping it up for me. Just ready for this next chapter to take over my life. And yeah, we'll be starting in August. So I still have a month away, but I digress. All right.
You're going to be great. You're going to be great.
Thank you, Tommy. You're going to be great too. I guess we'll start with that. Tommy, next year you're going to be the college crossfire host on TCV Sports. How's it feel having that? I hadn't talked to you personally about that yet. So,
well, it's obviously a huge honor. I mean, being able to do something that I think I have to shout out Drew Jacob, because last year was my first year and I had to kind of adapt to what all of the shows were. And at the start of the year, there were a bunch of different people all doing tryouts for the hosting position, and it didn't really flow as well as it did when Drew came on. Drew was just absolutely phenomenal as a host. So having the opportunity to kind of carry on his legacy and try and be somewhat like him. Obviously, I can't be Drew, but just trying to keep the namesake of the show carrying on and make sure that it's a good show every week is something that I take really seriously, and I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to trying my best to fill Drew's shoes, even though he was legendary. So Drew was one of the people that called me when I found out, and he was very supportive. Samantha Pearl also supportive. Adam Ogburn very supportive as well. And then really excited to work with Jordan Galehood as my our executive producer, for that show. We have a really great crew coming back this next year. I'm really sad that you can't be here, and Matt and the guys, but we'll have you back on the alumni show. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great year. I'm really excited, and I was very honored to get that phone call.
Yeah, it was you had a very good audition.
Well, thanks, man.
It was between you, David, and Jordan, who ended up getting the executive position. And yeah,
you were on that phone call too, I think, when you called me, right?
I was on a phone call, yes.
Okay, so thanks to you as well. I'm sorry, I completely blanked about that.
No, it's okay. I graduated, so you're fair to forget about me. I'm irrelevant now.
I'm not forgetting about you, I promise.
Yeah, it should be a really good year next year for y'all. Hopefully y'all can recruit some new people.
Hope so.
I'll try to watch as much as I can from up in Midland. And yeah, I'll try to get on that alumni show. I'll try to take some vacation days off.
You gotta come for 24/7 too, so we can have our second edition of Talking Basketball for 3 hours until 2 a.m.
I'd love that. Yes, hopefully at that time the Houston Rockets are at the top of the NBA world. The only thing you can talk about, So.
Well, hey, they can make some moves in tomorrow's draft that can get them pretty close there in the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, we'll get to that soon. All right. Speaking of NBA, I talked about the finals for about 30 minutes in my last episode, and how the Warriors beat the Celtics. It already seems like so long ago now since I did all this research about the draft. But Tommy, I hadn't heard your thoughts yet. So what are your main thoughts about the finals and your takeaways?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is you really have to tip your cap to the Warriors. I mean, the fact that just a couple of years ago, they were soaring low with Steph Curry struggling and Klay Thompson injured and Draymond Green not being himself. And last year being eliminated in a play-in game, had that really close back and forth game with the Lakers until LeBron hit that fadeaway dagger three. And just seeing them come back this year, I vividly remember Steph Curry saying in the press conference after they lost that you don't want to see us next year. And just seeing them live up to that was just really cool to watch. And it was especially cool to watch Steph Curry kind of, prove himself as one of the better players that we have ever seen in our game because, not having a finals MVP, which I think is completely ridiculous, had people discrediting him and his achievements. But there's no doubt in my mind that he's a top 10 player of all time. And I think that this NBA final specifically proved it. And it proved that the Warriors are, one of the best dynasties that the basketball world has ever seen. When you think of, the 90s Bulls and the 2010 Spurs, the Miami Heat when LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh were there. Those are the types of teams that they're sort of joining now when it comes to that conversation of great dynasties. And the team that they had was just so perfectly orchestrated. And you have to give a lot of credit to that for Steve Kerr, too. I think he had a lot to prove this year. People were discrediting his ability as a coach, but he has proven himself to be one of the best coaches our game has ever seen. So a lot of tip in the cap. And you also have to give a lot of respect on the other side of the Celtics as well. That's a really young team putting up a fight against a very experienced, very talented, very, very well organized team. Ime Udoka did a wonderful job in his first year as head coach, being able to make it that far and beating teams like the Nets with KD and Kyrie, then having to play Giannis and the Bucks in the second round, and then going right on to play one of the tougher teams mentally and physically in the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals and taking them the distance. Is just a really strong display of what the future holds in Boston. Obviously, they didn't get the performance that they needed out of Jason Tatum, and I think that was the big highlight on their struggles in that series. But we've seen stars like him struggle in their first finals. I think he and Kobe had the same shooting percentage in their first NBA Finals series, which I believe Kobe won his, but nonetheless, Jason Tatum's going to be a star in our league for a very long time. I have no doubt that he'll be back in the finals one day, and I have no doubt that one day he'll be raising a trophy as well. So, Boston, it hurts right now, but I think that if they can sort of retain the pieces they already have, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, maybe I think for 1 or 2 more years can do a lot for you. Excuse me. And just adding in small pieces to the puzzle will eventually get them over that hill.
Yeah, I mean, both teams played extremely well, in my opinion. That Boston game 1 where they won with Jason Tatum literally doing nothing was very impressive. But yeah, like you said, you got to tip it off to the Golden State Warriors and how well they came back from just the worst team in the league. I still can't get past that. They were the worst team in the league 2 years ago. 15-50, looking absolutely awful. Stephen A. Smith was calling them an embarrassment. You have the Warriors on your chest or whatever he said, and to come just 2 years later and win a championship without James Wiseman even playing, this your second overall pick that you got after being so bad and still winning a championship. I mean, you got to tip it off. And then, yeah, Steve Kerr, I think is going down as one of the greatest head coaches of all time. I mean, when you think about his accomplishments, I mean, his first year there, he turns a team who was, I believe, the 4th or 6th seed under Mark Jackson, and you get them to be the best. I think they were the best team in the league record-wise at the time, and making the finals and really dominating that playoff run. I mean, it tips a hat to like the guy. I mean, you can say that he was put into a really good situation, but he's the one who made it into that good situation. Mark Jackson didn't take that team all the way to the end, but he like laid down the groundwork, and Steve Kerr built it up. You gotta give it to him for that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, just a great run by the Warriors, and this is by far their most impressive championship, because the last 2, Kevin Durant, and then the first one, obviously the 2015 Cinderella run. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. And okay, a little bit of a quick question. We hadn't talked about football at all yet. What are your thoughts on the upcoming NFL season? What are you thinking?
Oh, I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. I think that this offseason was one of the more explosive ones that we've seen in quite some time. A lot of new faces and new places. One of the teams that really excites me is the Chargers. I think that the emergence of Justin Herbert onto the scene of one of the elite quarterbacks in the league last year uh, gives them a real shot at contending. And I think over the offseason signing Khalil Mack, already having Derwin James on your squad, and then bringing in J.C. Jackson for that secondary, two really great moves. People forget how good, and I know obviously because I'm a huge Bears fan, how good Khalil Mack is. Obviously, he missed most of last year with an injury, but he is one of the most terrifying defensive players that an offensive line has to worry about, or an offensive coordinator has to worry about. He will maul your defense, and he's still got some gas left in the tank. So that's definitely going to be something to watch. And not to mention on that same defensive line, you have Joey Bosa on the other side of him. So that's just going to be a nightmare, I think. I think they can really be one of, if not the best defense in the league when it's all said and done. And they have Kyle Van Noy in the middle as well, which is great. And then offensively, you have great weapons around Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler in the backfield. Mike Williams, who they just signed on a big contract, and Keenan Allen. So the Chargers are a team that I can see going far. And then it's great to have Tom Brady back for one last run before his nuclear television deal comes into play. I hope I can get that type of money one day, man.
Oh man, yeah.
That was crazy. But anyways, seeing Tom come back one last year, that's going to be really fun. And then, it'll be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes enjoys, for lack of a better word, life without Tyreek Hill, and how Tyreek Hill deals with life now that he has Tua Tagovailoa as a quarterback, which no discredit to Tua. I think he's a great player, but he still has a lot to prove. So yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of really, really exciting players coming in to the league. I think that Sauce Gardner is one of my favorite guys that I'm looking out to see.
Should have drafted the Texans.
Well, hey, you guys got Derek Stingley and Kenyon Green. So those are two really solid first-round picks that you should be very happy with. So there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it too. Yeah, a lot of movement when you think of Russell Wilson to the Broncos, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins, like you said, that was big. And then obviously Tom Brady coming back. We're all like, yeah, Tom Brady's finally gone. We got a year without him, and then he's like, nah, y'all think I was gone? Nah, I'm good. I'll come back. And recently Gronk retires, so we'll probably see him in 2 years, to be honest.
I will probably see him in week 17.
Yeah, when Tom's like, man, I need a tight end right now, man. Cameron Brate isn't doing anything if he's still there. I don't even know if he's still there. But yeah, all right. Well, with that out of the way. Oh, wait, who's your Super Bowl pick? Put you on the spot.
I think I have to go with the Bills. They're the best pound for pound team in the league, no question.
Yeah, I'll go with the Bills too. They're my secondary team because I'm a Texans fan, and it's not fun being a Texans fan. So I got to root for one of the good teams, and the Bills are the team I like to root for, especially with the addition of Von Miller. So
that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and then Josh Allen should make that big step. Maybe we see an MVP season from him. Well, who knows?
I would not be surprised. I think this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think that Josh Allen is, like, if you think of the optimal build for a quarterback, he is the textbook definition of everything that you want in a quarterback. A great frame, he can run, he has a cannon of an arm, super high IQ. I think he really could go down as one of the best quarterbacks ever when it's all said and done.
Yeah, we really hadn't seen like that size in a quarterback be like really well in the NFL either. Like
exactly.
I was watching a video and it was like every quarterback that's over the height of 6'6" just doesn't do anything. And he's like the rare quarterback who I think he's 6'6", 6'7", who has the ability to run and throw and be a great quarterback in this league. So I'm really excited for Josh Allen in this league.
Josh Allen's 6'5", but that doesn't make it any less impressive.
Oh, so he plays bigger. Okay, yeah.
He plays much bigger, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the bread and butter of this podcast. Let's get into this mock draft. Now, how it's going to work is I am a Rockets fan, if you couldn't tell from my jersey and my beanie, and the Rockets have the third pick. So Tommy is going to make the first two picks with the Magic and Thunder. I'll make the next 2 picks, Rockets and Kings, and then we take turns for a while, and then once we get to like 16 and 17, I'll make both of those picks for the Hawks and the Rockets, and then somewhere down the line we'll also like go back to back. But yeah.
Long story short, we each have 15 picks.
Yeah, sorry. I know that was a very long and complicated. You'll get it, okay? So
yeah, you'll see, guys.
Let me share the screen if you're watching this on my my YouTube that I'll hopefully remember to post. And if it'll show up. Okay, so
there you go.
Let me get Terry Eason's face out of the way. All right. So, Tommy, who do you have with the first pick in the NBA draft?
Well, we're heading down to Orlando. I was just in the state of Florida, and I can't say I stopped to talk to the GM or anything, but I think this is a pretty easy pick for them. I'm going with Jabari Smith out of the University of Auburn, the big forward. He's for lack of a better word, consensus. I wouldn't say really consensus. Him and Chet Holmgren are kind of intertwined in that first spot on draft boards. But Orlando's been without a number 1 scoring option now for quite some time. And I think Jabari Smith can be one of the guys who really changes that for them. You know, last year when they drafted Jalen Suggs, I don't think they got everything that they wanted to see out of him. Same with Cole Anthony a couple of years ago, even though he sort of stepped up this year a little bit. But he really could be, you know, one of the more dynamic offensive guys in the league. He, you know, combined his skill set with a 6'10" frame and a 7'1" wingspan. He's the definition of a stretch big, and that's what the Magic look for. They like those versatile players who are lengthy. You know, they got Texas's very own Mo Bamba a couple of years ago. So they like that type of talent. That's what they're getting here in Jabari, and I think they can't go wrong with this pick. He has a lot of upside, a lot of work to do, but a lot of upside, and he could be a threat down the line.
Yeah, Jabari Smith really like rising on people's boards over the course of the season. For a while, it was a Chet Paolo race for a long time, and then Jabari Smith just showed that he's like, you know, the guy who should be number 1. Right now, he's pretty much consensus number 1 on most of the mock drafts I saw. So
most of them I saw as well.
Yes, comparisons to Carmelo Anthony, 6'10". According to this article, has a size and length and pitcher perfect shot to become an elite scorer and versatility on defense to become a 2-way star. I think the Magic are getting a really good player here if they pick him. They have had problems developing young talent over the past couple of years, especially with the likes of Jalen Suggs, who wasn't really up to par. Our guy Mo Bamba hasn't really panned out to how he's supposed to be, but that's probably due to a lack of fit more than anything. But hopefully with this number 1 pick, which they haven't had since I believe Shaquille O'Neal, they can develop this guy and build their future around him with likes of Wendell Carter and Franz Wagner and guys like that who they have hit on. So good pick there from the Magic.
No pressure, Jabari. I know you're the first number 1 overall pick in Orlando since Shaq. That might be a little tough to live up to, but you got it, brother. So number 2 now?
Yes.
All right, number 2, the kings of the draft for the next 30 years, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think this is another no-brainer. I think these top 4 are pretty set in stone. So I'm going to go with Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. So personally, I've been hesitant to hop on this Chet Holmgren train. His biggest concern for me, and I think many others as well, is that his thin build is really going to make it difficult for him to go up against stronger players on either side of the floor. I think the NBA has become a much more physical game in the past couple of years. So with that being said, he does bring a lot to the table on both sides. Offensively, he's a great scorer on all 3 levels. He can get it done on the inside, just using his size alone. Then you back it up to the mid-range and 3-point shots. He shot 60.7% from the field and 39% from 3 in a season at Gonzaga. And then defensively, like I mentioned earlier, his size just makes him an elite rim protector at 7'1", averaging close to 4 blocks a night for the Zags. But if he adds muscle, man, there's no doubt that he has all-star potential. It just comes down to, can Oklahoma City develop him the right way, make sure he gets the right strength and conditioning program, and get him physically ready for the NBA, which is going to have teams that are in their scouting reports are going to say you have to be physical with this guy, because if you get physical with him, it's going to be very difficult for him to guard you down low.
Yeah, Chet Holmgren, he was the guy who I was referring to, who was the number one consensus, and then Jabari took over. And yeah, Chet Holmgren, the main concern with him is that his size. I mean, he's really skinny. There's been concerns over if he'll fit in with all the NBA bigs, and which has caused him to go down a lot of people's mock drafts over the past couple of days. But I think the Thunder here, they definitely pick Chet Holmgren. I think that's pretty much a perfect spot for him to land right now, especially since the Thunder don't really have a center to really build around. Not that they don't have the opportunity to pick a big time center. I mean, next year they could get the number one pick and pick Victor Wembanyama. But at the time, I think you definitely go with a guy like Chet, who they've shown that they have the ability to really like develop guys really well. When you look at Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. So if there's a team that can develop Chet Holmgren into like an NBA body, I think that you can trust the Thunder to do it, especially with all the young guys who are going to be building around him. I think that's a good pick. And let's move on to the third pick, which is the Houston Rockets, which is my team. I'm a major Houston Rockets fan, been a Rockets fan since about 2009 when we had Kyle Lowry, Kevin Martin, Chase Budinger, Shane Battier, Luis Scola, Chuck Hayes. You want me to continue?
Keep going. Full roster.
Luther Head. What's the other dude's name? I was like 10 at the time. But anyway, yeah, Houston Rockets. This is, like Tommy said, this is really like the top three are pretty much solidified. I mean, that could be like a hot take in the future if this changes. But I think this has been a three-man race for pretty much the entire season. And once the Rockets got the third pick, I was like, okay, we're probably going to get this guy, because I thought that Chet and Jabari were better than this dude. But honestly, I'm not even that upset. I think that they draft Paolo Banchero out of Duke. Now, Paolo Banchero, like I said, is probably the worst of the three, but he's also has been seen as the most NBA ready of the three with his size at 6'10", 250, much bigger than Chet Holmgren. He proved in the tournament that he can really play, being that power forward who can step out to the three-point line, hit some threes, but also like back you down, get to the rim. I am really excited as a Rocket fan. As you can see, I'm wearing my Josh Smith jersey that I have.
Oh wow, that was a long time ago.
Yes, which is number 5, which is the number that Paolo will probably wear. So I'll probably just hang this up from the front and say, hey, I have a Paolo Banchero jersey. But anyway.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about this for a while. Ever since we got the third pick, I've been watching a lot of Paolo Banchero highlights because I knew this was the guy we're probably going to get. And I think he will be a good fit here. I mean, the 4 position was really the position that we really didn't really have someone in the future for. I mean, we have Jayshawn Tate, who played the majority of the 3 for us this year, I want to say. I don't remember. But yeah, I think Paolo will come in. We just traded away Christian Wood to the Mavericks. Alperen Şengün will play the center position for us. Paolo at the 4. I think that's a nice twosome to build around for the future. And obviously you got Jalen Green, you got Josh Christopher, you got KPJ if we can develop him correctly. I know Kenyon Martin wants a trade now, which is weird for a third-year player who's younger than me to ask for a trade already, but I digress. Maybe we can trade him for a first-round pick. I think that's a nice young core for the Rockets to build around, especially if we can find a partner for John Wall, which doesn't look like we will. But anyway, I'll talk more about the Rockets later on with their 17th and 26th pick. But yeah, I definitely think that Paolo Banchero will be the guy that they draft.
Yeah, no, that's a no-brainer pick for Houston. I mean, I think that they were all in on him as soon as they traded away Christian Wood. So, putting him, I think, alongside Jalen Green is going to be really great. And then you mentioned Şengün down low at the center position. That's going to be fun on the inside. I think Banchero flashed his offense a lot, but he was great defensively as well for Duke, especially when March Madness started to heat up. Obviously, they didn't advance to the final, but they were still a force to be reckoned with defensively. But he can get it done on the offensive end as well. Houston, definitely one of the teams in the league that needs a little more emphasis on the defensive side of the ball. So adding him into the rotation will certainly help things out. And I think I'm really high on Kevin Porter Jr. I think he's going to take a big step this year and really be a leader on this team. And put Jalen Green, I think it just needs more time. You know, he's going to be a stud too, but he's shown some flashes. Hopefully this year he shows a little bit more, and he's going to be great. And I think Paolo is going to fit in very well in this system.
Yeah, and in recent days, I've seen that he's going up to number 1 on some people's mock drafts, which I was like, no, I'm in love with this guy now. Don't move him up. And
Yeah,
he thinks that he's the best
Houston.
player in the draft. What do you think?
Houston would be devastated if the Magic
Oh
took him
man,
number 1.
I
All
mean,
I've seen on Twitter the past couple of days are Rockets fan pages with jersey swap edits of Paolo with KPJ and Jalen Green and Josh Christopher. So
I
hopefully
don't
they can get it. They can get it right.
I don't need a Photoshop. I already have the number 5
There
jersey in
you
my
go.
possession. So
Just put duct tape over Smith and just write Banchero with a Sharpie on it.
you know, it'd been perfect if we drafted Jabari Smith and then he wore number 5. Then
Oh,
that'd be even better. But
even better.
I don't think the Magic are I don't think the Magic are passing on Jabari Smith. But yeah, moving on to a team who's been here before, not the number 4 pick, but in the lottery in general, the Sacramento Kings. Now the Kings are in a weird place in my opinion. They just traded their what I thought was their franchise cornerstone in Tyrese Halliburton for a guy who's about 28, 29 in, or I think maybe 27 in Domantas Sabonis in a move to win now, which they weren't at the time of the trade in a position to win now, but they traded for Domantas Sabonis in hopes of trying to make the play-in. They didn't make the play-in. That's the Sacramento Kings, and as always, I have no idea what this team is doing. Like, if I were them, I would have kept Tyrese and traded De'Aaron Fox, who clearly isn't as much of a fit as Tyrese is. But I'm not the Kings. I don't make the decisions for them, except for right now. And I think that, like Tommy said earlier, the top 4 are pretty much solidified at this point. I mean, I've seen some people not pick this dude, but I think they will make a mistake if they didn't. And that is Jaden Ivey out of Purdue. Jaden Ivey, really athletic shooting guard. People think that he might be the next John Morant. That would be pretty cool if you're the Sacramento Kings. Put him at the 2 next to De'Aaron Fox, who's already a decent defender. Jaden Ivey, ultra athletic guard in the mold of John Morant. He can create his own shot with a quick first step. We'll need to improve defensively to become elite. You're already next to De'Aaron Fox, who's a really good defender in his own right. I think the Kings are a tough team, man, because like the Kings have such a bad history of drafting that I'm kind of scared for Jaden Ivey to go to this team. It's because you look at guys like Ben McLemore and Nick Stauskas, 2 shooting guards that they've selected in the past, didn't pan out to anything. I mean, I love Ben McLemore. He's one of my favorite players for some reason. I don't know why, but I can say that he hasn't been what he's supposed to. And then even recent examples of Marvin Bagley III, who's already out of there and drafted right before Luka Doncic. So obviously the Kings don't have the reputation to uphold to draft really well. But hopefully Jaden Ivey can be the difference maker and try to come here and really change. Because I feel like he does have the body and the skill to be a franchise changer. It's just we just have to see if that's in Sacramento.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Jaden Ivey, for me, is the best all-around player in this draft. Taking him number 1 in Orlando just doesn't make sense for me, so that's why he's all the way here at number 4. But man, I hope his career doesn't go to waste in Sacramento because, like you said, the Kings have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're a fraudulent franchise, in my opinion, just because they're clueless. They can't develop talent. They don't know how to win, and essentially, they're just wasting people's careers. I think a prime example of that is De'Aaron Fox, because also shout out De'Aaron, fellow Cypher ISD alum,
Hey.
down the street at Side Lakes, and but I think De'Aaron Fox has really been held back from what he can really do. He's super quick. He can shoot the ball really well. That's all kind of been hidden behind the fact that he's been stuck in Sacramento with a worse than mediocre team. Now, adding Jaden Ivey into this backcourt has the potential to make this a really solid backcourt, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to really bring Sacramento onto the scene. What really impresses me about Jaden is his defensive ability. I think that he really showed that in the game that I kind of realized, okay, this guy's going to be really good in the league when they played Texas in the second round of the NCAA tournament this past year. He was making it look easy on the defensive end, as was Purdue as a whole unit. And then offensively, he was just an absolute killer. He was knocking down threes from way outside late in the game. So you want those guys who aren't afraid of the moment. Jaden Ivey's not afraid of the moment. He's a cold-hearted killer, and he's going to be elite. I hope Sacramento, please do not ruin Jaden's career.
For sure, for sure. I mean, Jaden Ivey's the type of guy who you want to succeed if in all actuality, and him going to Sacramento is very scary. It's not like he's going to Golden State or OKC where they have the history of developing talent. He's going to Sacramento.
Sacramento, where NBA careers go to die.
Yeah. All right. So you ready for Detroit basketball?
Detroit. So with the 5th pick, speaking of Detroit basketball, I think this guy is someone who really embodies it. I'm going to go with Keegan Murray from Iowa. So a couple hours ago, Jeremy Grant dealt to Portland for a 2025 first-round pick. I think that was it. I'm surprised that was it because Jeremy Grant is, I think, a much better player than a first-round pick 3 years away from now. But who knows? I might be wrong in 3 years. So with that in mind, I think this pick makes a lot more sense. Murray is a superb defender. He's got a really high motor, and that's what will make him fit the culture very well in Detroit. And my favorite thing about him is the leap that he made from his freshman season to his sophomore season in scoring. His first year, he shot 29.6% from three. This year, 39.8%. And then scoring wise, 7.2 points per game to 23.5. He was the head guy on an Iowa team that I think really shocked a lot of people in the NCAA tournament, making it there, having a high seed. So he's one of my favorite prospects in this draft. And I know he was a little bit higher earlier, I believe, coming into when the mock drafts first started rolling out, has dropped a little bit, but I still think he can be and will be a day one starter for the Pistons. I think he complements Cade Cunningham really well. The emergence of Sadiq Bey has helped them a lot. And Keegan just gives you everything that you need if you're the Pistons right now.
Yeah, and if them trading away Jeremy Grant said anything, is that they're looking for a power forward to put in this position. And I think Keegan Murray is, like you said, kind of a perfect fit for them right now. They need someone who has the poise and the decision-making IQ as Keegan Murray to put it alongside Cade Cunningham, and maybe if things work out, Killian Hayes, their lottery pick from 2 years ago. And yeah, I like the direction the Pistons are going, and I think this could be a good pick for them.
Absolutely.
And then we will move on to a team who's kind of new here in the lottery, and that's the Indiana Pacers, who are kind of sort of starting to rebuild a little bit. I don't really know. They still have a lot of their veteran players in TJ Warren and Malcolm Brogdon and guys like that. But then they also have like some young guys like that aforementioned Tyrese Halliburton, and they just picked up Jalen Smith. Another guy they also have is Miles Turner, who's been on trade blocks for the past 10 years. So I really hope that this pick solidifies their direction. I really want them to get rid of Brogdon. I really want them to get rid of Miles Turner. I really want them to get rid of TJ Warren, who hadn't seen play since the bubble. And I really like two guys here. So I'm a little on the edge about both of them. One of them we hadn't really seen play that much, and one we have seen play. I'm going to go with a guy who is 6'6", from Arizona, Benedict Mathurin, who has the name of a 50-year-old man, but he is not. He is, I don't want to say 20, I don't know. But Benedict Mathurin, I mean, he's a willing shooter who's established himself as one of the nation's best shooters. His skill set should translate well to the NBA, which spacing should help him out with his shot. I mean, I know they just drafted Chris Duarte last year, who was also a shooting guard, but I think at this point you just need to pick the best available. And while I did think Shadon Sharp should have gone maybe here or even a pick before, at the end of the day, we don't really know much about Shadon Sharp because he didn't play in college. So I think if you're the Pacers, you go with a guy who's proven that he can play really well in the NBA, or not in the NBA, but you know what I mean, in college. And Benedict Mathurin had a decent tournament run as well. Yeah, I think they go best available, and in that case, that is Benedict Mathurin.
I agree. And, Benedict is not 50, he's only 20. Although the name does, he'll be better suited down the line with that name. But I think Arizona last year was one of the more impressive teams of the tournament, even though they shattered my heart when they beat my beloved TCU Horned Frogs and my good buddy Mike Miles. But he, like you mentioned, one of the better shooters in the draft, and he's really going to be what they need here in Indiana. They've got a lot of good guard play in the past couple of years. They've had the Victor Oladipos, and now they bring in Tyrese Halliburton, who's sort of a guard forward. And they get the same thing here in Benedict. And he had a strong freshman campaign, but that second year was really where he stood out. His size at 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan is undeniable. He's got a good build, 204 pounds. He can score at all three levels, defends really well, and he's really athletic. So just an all-around great pick for Indiana.
Yes. So moving on, we have a team who also isn't used to being in the lottery. That's Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, and if they get rid of Damian Lillard, they might have to get used to being here in the next couple of years. But something to help prevent that and keep them good is going to be my pick here. We just talked about him, Shaedon Sharpe from Kentucky. There's a lot of question marks surrounding him, obviously, because of the fact that he just didn't play in college this past season. We haven't seen him play since high school, at least organized-wise. But at 6'5" with a 6'11" and a half wingspan, that's an incredible build for a guy that you want to pair Damian Lillard with, because I think that when they made the trade for Jeremy Grant, that was, although I don't think it was a good one, a way of saying to Damian Lillard, hey, we're trying to get you help. Again, I don't think Jeremy Grant is the help that Damian Lillard needs, but if you draft a guy like Shaedon Sharpe, that kind of gives him a right-hand man in the backcourt, depending on where they play him, obviously. But the thing that stands out about Sharpe is that he's an excellent shooter, and he has plenty of upside in that area, and just in general, natural scorer, and that fits the Portland offensive scheme perfectly because Damian Lillard just goes and scores. Like, he can pull up from 30 feet out, or he can take you to the rim and get you there. And Sharpe is sort of the same way. So I think that if you have either one of them attack and draw a double team, fly the other one out into the corner, or even on the wing, just spread the floor out, they can really be a much better team coming into next year. Sharpe just is, your offensive Swiss Army knife. I think defensively needs to improve a little bit, but there's a lot that he needs to prove. And I think that with time, we will see his upside, and we will see why he is so high on these draft boards, because rarely do you see a player who hasn't played in college, or at least somewhat professionally, this high on draft boards if they don't have undeniable talent.
Yeah, I agree. I did think that you were going to go with, I guess, the guy I'll go with next. But yeah, definitely a high risk, high reward pick, in my opinion. You can either get a guy who is miles better than the top 7-6 picks in Shaedon Sharpe, or you could get a guy who clearly isn't ready for the NBA game. And I don't really know if Portland, a team who is another team that we don't really know what their direction is. I mean, their direction should be to rebuild, because it should be, but they are dead set on trying to win a championship with Damian Lillard, even though we all know they're not going to win a championship with Damian Lillard more than likely, unless they can get Kevin Durant to come back after not drafting him in 2007. So, yeah, Shaedon Sharpe, maybe a CJ McCollum replacement, but better. I think that's what you're wanting if you're Blazers, like a CJ McCollum, but all-star level. So, yeah. Moving on to the Pelicans, who this isn't their pick, this is the Lakers pick. This is the pick that goes all the way back to the Anthony Davis trade. And we have heard rumors where I believe the Suns wanted to trade for this pick in order to make cap room for DeAndre Ayton in the offseason. Both teams don't really need this pick, if I'm being honest. The Pelicans are a playoff team, and if Zion, I've been saying this for the past couple months, if Zion comes back healthy, that's a very scary team because you got Zion, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas. The only thing they're really missing is a great point guard. I know CJ McCollum played point guard for them this season, but he's not a great point guard. That's where my guy I'm drafting comes in, Dyson Daniels.
That's going to be my next one.
Yes, out of G League Ignite. I know we were all giddy for Josh Giddey last year, 6'7" point guard who can pass and Australian and pretty cool. Dyson Daniels is like that. He's 6'6". He's an Australian playmaker, just like Josh Giddey. He's an above-average passer with court vision and desire to facilitate for teammates, and he's a lockdown defender. That is the thing that CJ McCollum has never had in his career, a lockdown defender to be his backcourt mate. So if they're getting a guy in Dyson Daniels who's tall, who can play the point guard position or shooting guard position if he wants to, I think that's a great pick for the Pelicans if they keep this pick. I do think there is a possibility that they trade it, but we're not. This isn't a trade prediction podcast. This is a mock draft. So I think Dyson Daniels would be a nice selection here, especially if Zion comes back. Can you see that pick and roll of Dyson Daniels and Zion Williamson? That would be incredible. That's another if, though. That's another if. We don't know if Zion is coming back like the way he used to be. But at the end of the day, I think the Pelicans just need to draft for fit at this time. Since they're not a rebuilding team, they are a playoff team. And Dyson Daniels really fits into what they need, which is a facilitator at that point guard position.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially when you mentioned his playmaking ability. He's very crafty at that guard position. They have him listed as a 6'8" shooting guard. But I think the thing that concerns me about him is his shooting percentage. He was 25.5% from three last year in G League at night. So that's definitely going to be a red flag, if you will. But I think that New Orleans has the talent around him to score with guys like Brandon Ingram and Zion on the inside, and then CJ McCollum on the outside. So, whether he is a day one starter or he rotates off the bench, he really gives you a lot. And his defensive game is really what makes him stand out. He's got a really high IQ. If he can get that shooting to come around, maybe we see potential, surefire starter, maybe an all-star bid type of player. But he still has a lot of work to do. Nonetheless, I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, I didn't know about the shooting percentage before this, so thank you for putting holes into my pick, but I digress.
No, I think it's a good pick. It's a good pick.
Yeah. Okay, San Antonio Spurs. Tommy, what do you think?
All right, this is one of my. I really like this pick on my end. I'm patting myself on the back a lot with these picks, but San Antonio, I think, has had a long history of doing great work with big men. And I think we're going to keep that going here as long as Greg Popovich is at the helm, which Lord knows how much he's got left in the tank. I'm going to go with Jalen Duren from Memphis. The Spurs have one of the best, if not the best, developmental team in the entire league. They have really focused on playing their brand of basketball as long as Greg Popovich has been there, which has 22 years coming into this season, I believe.
Yep.
And a big part of his offense is they're not flashy. They play the fundamental way, and they play the defined 5 positions way, not positionless basketball as we've seen the game sort of move towards this year. And I think that Jalen Duren gives them the definition of a guy who will get it done for you down low, just a dominant force at 6'11". That build is insane, super strong, 250 pounds of just pure muscle. And he was great at Memphis. After he reclassified to the class of 21 and took off a year early so that he can get into this draft. He's going to be 18 on draft day, so there's plenty of time to. I'm older than Jalen Durant. Like, this is scary that this guy is a couple months younger than me, and he's going to be a force in San Antonio if they pick him. I mentioned his height at 6'11". He's got a 7'5" wingspan, so he's going to give you the rebounding you want down low, be a force on the interior offensively, and he's going to defend really, really well. Like I said, 250 pounds of just pure muscle and showing it off at Memphis, one of the more athletic teams in college basketball, one of the more fun teams to watch, I think, as well in college basketball with Penny Hardaway over there at the helm. So I really like this pick, and I think Greg Popovich will as well if he falls into his hands.
You're finally at the age where you're older than NBA prospects, Tommy. You've made it.
It's scary, man. It's scary.
I remember when I was your age, I was like, dang, I'm older than these NBA players now. What the heck? It's normal for me now because I'm 22 and like most players are like 3 years younger than me, but it's really weird at first. And Jalen Duren really seems like a Spursy player. I mean, like you said, 6'11", 250. Like, I think he fits into that Spurs roster really well as a guy who can just come in, defend to pick and roll, defend the rim. Like, I think that's a really good pick for the Spurs. And I know you got Jakob Poeltl there at the center position, but I think if they can like switch off every once in a while, have Jakob start this first season. If Jalen Duren shows signs of being a starting caliber center, maybe you trade away Jakob Poeltl for a need that you need. Maybe a shooting guard, since they don't have Derek White anymore, and all the shooting guards they picked may not be the future. I think that's a really good pick for the Spurs right there.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the Washington Wizards, and this is a weird pick for me. I obviously Bradley Beal. We don't know if he's coming back. I mean, I know he wants to come back. Me personally, I'd rather him go to a different team just because he's been rotting in Washington for too long. I want this Washington team to rebuild. They've been at this number 10 spot, around this number 10 spot for too long. I mean, and if they are going to move on from Bradley Beal, I feel like this guy is kind of a perfect guy to replace him with. And that is a guy who already has an NBA commercial for Taco Bell, Johnny Davis. And if you're he has his own commercial at this point. I mean, he has a commercial for a reason.
Saw that.
Yes. At first I thought it was an actor when I saw that commercial. I was like, who is this? This is a normal Taco Bell commercial. But I'm like, oh wait, no, that's Johnny Davis. He looks familiar. So yeah, Johnny Davis, he was a sophomore at Wisconsin this season. Wisconsin has a really good program there with guys like Frank Kaminsky, Sam Decker, guys like that. Johnny Davis, according to NBA.com, is a guard who likes to work in the paint. Davis has a mid-range game that could translate well to the NBA. He's shown a desire and a passion to become a solid defender. If you're the Wizards at this point, you just want to get a solid guy that you can put alongside Denny Avdia and Kyle Kuzma. And they don't really have any like I'm trying to name like young guys in their roster, and I can't. Those are really the only ones I can really name that are difference makers. I mean, Corey Kispert, who I believe they drafted last year. He hasn't really panned out to be anything really. I mean, I don't know if that's just because I don't really watch the Wizards that much or if that's like, the case. But if they want to move on for Bradley Beal, which I think they should, Johnny Davis would be a nice guy to just throw in there, see if he can make some shots, see if he can play good defense at the NBA level. I think Johnny Davis, Taco Bell, commercial king, should go to Washington.
Yeah, I think that's a really great pick. And you once again stole mine for the Knicks here up next.
Yes, it means I'm doing something right.
This is true. So yeah, Johnny was really impressive in Wisconsin. I think he was another one of those guys who was a lot higher on this draft board list at the start of the year. And then I don't think he had the year that he really wanted to this past season. He didn't shoot the ball as well as he had in the past, just 30.6% from three, but he did average almost 20 points a game with 8.2 rebounds and then dishing it out two times a night as well. The Wizards need about as much help as they can get right now, especially if Bradley Beal is out the way, which for his sake, I hope he is.
For real.
but the 6'9" wingspan is what really stands out for him, and the fact that he can stretch the floor with that. So, I mentioned his shooting percentage, but he did show some light at the end of the tunnel in catch and shoot situations. And I think the Knicks are a big ball movement team. I know Tom Thibodeau is not a big 3-point shooting coach, but I think in today's league, you sort of have to adapt to that. And hopefully, for New York's sake, he does.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, what about? Sorry, I picked your pick, but who is your next pick for the New York Knicks?
Well, my next pick is almost like a copy and paste with Johnny. I want to go with AJ Griffin,
I knew it.
freshman from Duke, 6'6", 222 with a 7-foot wingspan. I mentioned the Knicks need a shooter on offense, and AJ Griffin,
AJ Green.
them that. Making a surprise move from the NFL. AJ Griffin gives them that and so much more. He's just a pure-blooded scorer, and the stats don't show it. He only averaged 10 points a game last year. Remember, he's playing at Duke, so he had guys like Paolo Banchero sharing the court with him, not to mention his teammate who will probably be taken here in a little bit, and Mark Williams dropping 11 points a night as well. So AJ at 6'6" is exactly what you need on the wing in New York. I think they have a lot of raw talent out there in RJ Barrett and a lot of unproven talent in guys like Julius Randle. And Griffin gives them that spot up shooter that they need. He was one of the best shooters in the country last year, 44.7% from deep. And he's grown up. I think this is a really underrated facet of looking at players to draft. He's the son of former NBA player and current Toronto Raptors assistant coach, Adrian Griffin. So he's been around the game his entire life. He went through the greatest collegiate coach of all time in Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. He's played at a high level. I hope he continues to play at a high level. The Knicks have a reputation of not doing so hot and, passing up on some guys and also picking less talented players. I think AJ Griffin is neither. If he's there for them at number 11, they need to take him or Johnny Davis. I think they're really interchangeable. Those two play very similar.
Yeah, and like you said, his numbers don't pop off the screen, but again, he plays at Duke, so you don't expect guys unless you're a Paolo Banchero type player to really like have their numbers pop off the screen. I mean, if you look at guys like Tyler Hero, who played at Kentucky, and he didn't put up that big stats, but then he went to the NBA and now he's sixth man of the year. Same thing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He didn't put up that huge numbers at Kentucky. I know this is a Duke player, but those are the first two came out of my mind with the Blue Bloods. But AJ Griffin, he goes to a right situation, and the Knicks right now need a guy to come into the game and shoot threes at a high clip. They got Evan Fournier for that exact reason. He didn't really do that well. So if you can slot him in there for Evan Fournier, who's also not making 17 million like Evan Fournier is right now, I think that's a win for the New York Knicks.
Absolutely.
And moving on to the first team who has their second pick of the draft, the king of draft picks, the OKC Thunder. And I actually meant to have this be for Tommy, but I accidentally put my name. But I'll pick anyway.
I can pick if you want me
to. Then you would have to make 3 picks in a row with the Hornets. I could just do this if you want. I don't know.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, we got a mid podcast technical issue, but it's okay because I have the guy I have picking. I have the guy who I have the Thunder taking, and right now I feel like they have pretty much all their positions filled, especially if they pick Chet Holmgren at the point guard position. You have Josh Giddey at the shooting guard position. You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, now that I think about it, they don't really have a small forward, but power forward position is the one position that they're really lacking at this moment. And I feel like a safe pick for them to pick is Jeremy Sochan out of Baylor. His abilities on the defensive end make him a unique option. His versatility gives him the chance to contribute immediately as a positionless big man. And if you're OKC, you have all these first round picks. you can afford to make some risks in your picks. And yeah, if you go with a guy like Jeremy Sochan, who showed at Baylor that he can be a decent player, and you put him next to Chet Holmgren and you just have them like build around each other with this young core of Shea and Josh Giddey and guys like I named. Lou Dort was the guy I was thinking of at the small forward position. There we go. Lou Dort's your future at the 3. But yeah, if you go with a guy like Jeremy Sochan, I think that's a pretty good pick for them. I know it's kind of weird to pick 2 big men in a draft, but I think he'll probably be worth it if you can develop it in the right way. And like we said earlier, OKC does have a reputation of developing players in the right way. If you look at guys like Serge Ibaka, who was, I think, the 24th pick back in 2009, I believe, developed him to be one of the best shot blocking big men in the league. Jeremy Sochan, I feel like, can do the same. Okay, Tommy, I stole your pick. Was that who you're going to pick, or are you going to pick someone else?
Yeah, you did again, man. It never fails. So now we have Charlotte. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When it comes to Sochan, yeah, I need to give a little bit about him. I think what really stands out for him is his defensive ability. Watching him last year, I watched him twice when Texas played Baylor. He was just incredible on the defensive end, and then when he gets going offensively, he's going to be a tough guy to stop. So with that 12th pick and already picking Chet Holmgren, like you mentioned, their lineup is somewhat balanced. You just take the best available, and at 12, I think that Sochan is that guy. So at number 13, a team that could have used a defensive player and still is going to get one because I think I'm a good GM. I'm going to go with Mark Williams, the 7-foot sophomore from Duke. On the inside, this guy is incredible. And I think Charlotte, they have the talent in the backcourt they need in LaMelo Ball. They've got younger guys like Miles Bridges who have stepped up. So something that the Hornets have been lacking for quite some time is a true big man down low. And Mark Williams gives them just that athletically and physically. He's listed from 7 foot 7'2", 7 foot 6.5 wingspan is just unfathomable. Really great rim protector, and he's going to get you a lot of boards, and that's really important in today's game. So if you can feed him the ball in the post, he's a great scorer as well. He averaged 11 last year at Duke. So putting up those numbers on a very talented team is good for you. And then, 7 rebounds a game as well. So the only thing with him is that he's not a big 3-point shooter. Obviously, that's something to raise your eyebrow about. In fact, he had a 0% 3-point percentage last year at Duke. So I didn't take a single 3. But with as dominant as he is on the interior, he doesn't need to. And I think that this is just a no-brainer all around for the Hornets at 13. We'll come back to him in a couple of picks.
Yeah, and I feel like this has been the pick for pretty much the entire draft process. The big thing the Hornets have needed over the past decade or so has been the center position. And you're getting a guy, like you said, he has a 9'9" wingspan, which is insane. 7'2". He can come in, be a lob threat for LaMelo Ball.
Hold on. 7, 6.5. You said 9'9". Good Lord, dude. If he had a 9-foot wingspan,
what the heck
that would be the most terrifying basketball player ever.
Did this website lie to me? Well, whatever.
I think they did.
Okay. Well, now I'm not sold. I thought he had a no, but I lost my train of thought. But anyway, yeah, Mark Williams, great center there for the Hornets. Like I said, they've needed a center for a long time, and if they can develop him, I think the Hornets are an up-and-coming franchise with LaMelo Ball. If they can retain Miles Bridges, if they can develop James Bouknight, I think that's a good team for the future. And I think Mark Williams, just slide him in at the center position. I think you're good.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes, thank you. So moving on to the 14th pick, the last pick of the lottery. And we got the Cleveland Cavaliers, which was one of my first, was one of my favorites. Sorry, one of my favorite teams this season. With Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, just that that's one of the most underrated young trios in the league. I think that has the opportunity to be a great team for the future. I mean, they arguably should have made the playoffs this year. And I think they would have made a little bit of noise if they made the playoffs, to be honest. I mean, I don't think they're winning in that first round against the Heat or the Celtics if they make it there. But I thought they were a really good team and they're fun to watch. And if I'm them, I think they have pretty much all their positions really filled. Like I said, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. It's really only the 2 and the 3, and the guy I'm picking here is I for the longest time I hadn't found out how to pronounce his name, but Ochai Agbaji. Did I say it right? I don't know.
Ochai Agbaji.
Agbaji. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll call him OA. OA, the senior out of Kansas. I mean, he showed in the tournament that he was a really good prospect, and I think he went up a lot of people's boards. I didn't really see him in a lot of boards at the beginning of the season. So if you're the Cavs at 14, I think you just pick the best player available that you think will fit into your team. And right now, I think he's probably the best player available, not only on a skill set, but because he's so much older than the rest of the prospects, because he's a senior. He's one of those senior players. I think he has the opportunity to be one of the better players in this draft if he can, at a production standpoint. When you look at guys like Chris Duarte, who was 40 years old in last year's draft, he ended up being one of the most prominent rookies last year for the Indiana Pacers. So if the Cavs can get this guy who can come in and maybe start, maybe come off the bench if you want him to, I think that's a pretty good pick for them. Especially, like, I'm not personally sold on Isaac Okoro as that starter. But if you want to start Isaac Okoro and have him be the defensive presence and have OA come in and be like a bench player, I think that's a good pick for them.
Yeah, man. Once again, stealing my pick. I mean, seriously, you're like reading my mind or something, dude.
I am.
But yeah, Ochai Agbaji, I think, is one of those guys that you would think is higher, but just because of how talented the top of this draft is, he slides down this board a lot. He played really well this past year at Kansas. Obviously, he played well. They won the national championship, and he was the cornerstone on that team. Almost 20 points a game with 5 rebounds and 2 assists. Shot 41% from 3. He's your prototypical 3-and-D type of guy. Can guard a couple of different positions, and he knocks down those big corner threes and just threes off the catch in general. He's got a 6'10" wingspan as well that allows him to be a much better defender, and that's what really gives him the edge against different positions, different opponents who are a little bit larger. But yeah, that's a really good pick, and Ochai is going to be a great player, I think.
Yes. So we will interrupt this with a rumor. Per Bleacher Report, Hawks and Spurs blockbuster talks. Spurs and Hawks talking DeJounte Murray, John Collins deal. Whoa. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young in the backcourt?
What? Yeah, that would be something.
Yeah.
But I mean, John Collins, I think, is still really good. I don't know if I'd want to give that up. But
for DeJounte Murray? All-star DeJounte Murray?
No, I know he's an all-star and he's very capable. I'm just thinking more of on your big guys. And interestingly enough, the Hawks have a pick here. You have to pick for the Hawks, so keep that in the back of your head when making this pick. So I'm interested to see if that trade goes down, if they maybe swap picks. Spurs have number 9, Hawks have number 16. I don't think that makes any sense, but because if you're the Spurs, that means you're giving away a lottery pick and your best player for John Collins and a pick at 16. So it's a very interesting development that we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, honestly, I like it for the Hawks, but I don't really like it for the Spurs, especially since.
Yeah, I don't like it for the Spurs either.
I don't know. Like, if I'm the Spurs, DeJounte Murray is untouchable. I'm not trading him for anyone. He has the opportunity to be one of the best, like not only defensive point guards, but one of the best point guards in the league.
Absolutely.
He showed he can score 20 points a game this season. Like I'm not trading him for John Collins, who hasn't proven to be anywhere near an all-star level. I mean, he's a good player, but he's not nearly like an all-star. And I think if you do this trade, the Hawks will have to give up a first-round pick, like additional first-round pick if they're going to swap, because that's how much I think DeJounte Murray is worth. But then again, Jeremy Grant was just traded for a Bucks first-round pick for 2025, so maybe players is values aren't as what we think.
I agree.
All right, well, we'll move on to the Hornets' second pick and 3 picks. So Tommy, who do you got picking there?
All right, we are at the halfway point.
Yes.
And you put me in a tough spot again because you took my pick again. So instead, I wanted Ochai just because he is the prototypical 3-and-D guy, and I think Charlotte needs some help on the defensive end. But a little offense doesn't hurt. So I'm going to go with Malachi Branham from Ohio State.
Okay.
6'5", 194. He's got a 6'10" wingspan. Excuse me, more of a scorer and a wing guy, but nonetheless, really good. Plays with patience. He's a smooth 3-level scorer. He's really comfortable in the pick and roll, and I think that Charlotte has done that a lot with LaMelo Ball at the helm. And they're very athletic. So, when you incorporate guys like Miles Bridges on the receiving end of that pick and roll, a lot can happen there offensively. But what Brandon brings to the table is a spot-up shooter, and LaMelo isn't as reliable, I would say, as Branham is. So I would much rather have a guy like that shooting 41.6% from 3. He just fits the bill. Not the most explosive creator, but if you get him the ball beyond the arc, he's gonna knock it down. He can pull up from mid-range as well. So yeah, I like this pick a lot for Charlotte, and I think that you really can't go wrong with a big man and Mark Williams that can get you some scoring on the interior, and then you spread the floor a little bit with Branham on the outside, and you have guys like LaMelo Ball on your team just crafting different sets offensively and moving the ball around, getting the ball inside, and kicking it back out. So I think these 2 picks, if they pan out, can help Charlotte a lot.
Yeah, another solid pick from Tommy. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know a lot about Malachi Branham, but it says here he improved tremendously, was one of the most impactful point guards in college basketball to close out the season. He's 18 years old and will turn 19 on May. Oh, I'm sorry, this is old. He's 19 right now. But yeah, if you put him maybe at the shooting guard position with LaMelo Ball, or if you want to bring him off the bench and have him be a spark plug off the bench, maybe like a maybe like a Devontae Graham, but better. I think that's a solid pick, and I think he's a solid defender. So if LaMelo Ball isn't giving you what you want defensively, you can maybe put Malachi Branham in the game for defensive purposes. Overall, solid pick.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on to the Hawks, who now that I found out that they're trying to trade John Collins is maybe making me think differently about who they pick. But I think I'm just gonna go with what I was gonna go with anyway, and pick Ousmane Dieng. I've never said his name out loud. Out of New Zealand, France. So Dieng is a unique prospect and has shot up draft boards on his potential 1 or 2 seasons down the road. He's 6'10" at the small forward position, which kind of makes him sound like a Jalen Johnson type pick for the Hawks, which they already have. But you can never have enough big wings. So I think that might be a decent pick for them. He's 6'10". He is 185 pounds, which makes him on a skinny side. But if he can come in and just maybe be like a Giannis type player for them, maybe just like a project, I think that could be a decent pick for the Hawks. I'm a little less confident about this pick now that I heard that they're trying to trade John Collins. But I mean, if they get DeJounte Murray and then put DeJounte at the 2, maybe put Dieng at the 3, although you do still have DeAndre Hunter, who had a really good playoff run last year. So maybe you're probably going to, I mean, you're at 16, you're not really looking for a starter, but maybe this guy will be a decent guy to bring off the bench.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a work in progress for quite some time. He's got really great size. He's got good length, good mobility, but there really is a lot of development that needs to be done. The upside is huge, like I mentioned, but it's going to be a while until Usmani is able to contribute, and I think that might be an issue for Atlanta if they look to take him here. But like I said, the upside is just really high. He gives you a big ball handler at 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan. So you can have him take the ball up the floor coming off the bench if Trae Young needs a breather. Facilitates the offense really well. And, not as much of a shooter or a scorer, more of the orchestrator, but nonetheless can really give you a lot on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, also a lot to improve upon there, but he's young. Whoever picks him knows this is going to be a process. So I think that you can't go wrong here.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a bit of a gamble, but it's high risk, high reward.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the Houston Rockets. And I'm a little torn here. There's a couple guys I would like us to go with. So I'm literally going to make this decision on the spot. We got this pick from the Brooklyn Nets in the James Harden trade. And really the only position that we don't have a young player in right now is the point guard position. I know Kevin Porter Jr. is a young player, but I'm not really counting him just because I kind of see him as more veteran, ironically, on this team. This one might be a little bit of a risk, and I don't know if it's exactly the right pick, but I've been seeing a lot of him rising on a lot of draft boards. I'm going to go with Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. He averaged 18 points last year. He's one of the biggest risers after playing well during the draft combine scrimmages. He's a pretty good defender. He was a junior this coming year. So, I mean, the Rockets, I feel like they hadn't really drafted anyone like one of those older prospects. I feel like these last years they've picked like the young, like Jalen Green type guys, or Alperen Şengün, who's 18. So maybe going with a guy who's a junior. He had a good year last year. He's rising for a reason. That's kind of what happened with Şengün. I believe he was like not really on anyone's radar, but then he shot up draft boards, and then the Rockets traded a pick to get him, and it worked out for them that time. This might be a bit of a risky pick for the Rockets, just because he was a last-second riser. And I mean, there may have been a reason why he wasn't high in the first place. But with 17 and also with 26 coming, I feel like the Rockets, if of all teams, have the opportunity to take a risk here. And at 17, you're not really expecting to get a game-changing guy. But if you do, then it's seen as like a win. So if this guy doesn't work out, then, it's just a 17th pick. It won't be, catastrophic. But yeah, let's go Jalen Williams.
Yeah, I also won't sit here and lie to you that I've heard a lot about Jalen Williams, but I think that you hit it on the head. He's a shooter, and that's exactly what the Rockets need. They need basically just the best available player at any point in time, and adding a shooter that could potentially come off the bench and take the place of someone like Kevin Porter Jr. if he needs a couple of minutes. The bench. What really impresses me about him is his wingspan. He's 6'5", but he has a 7'2" wingspan, which is incredible. Add on the fact that he shot over 40% from three. Obviously, keeping in mind that he went to Santa Clara, so you question the level of competition there. Excuse me, but it doesn't matter if you're shooting that well. He's got great vision as well, and he can facilitate. So this would be a really great pick if it pans out well. I think as a guy coming off the bench, and then maybe if they end up needing someone to fill that point guard spot, they can turn their head to him.
Yeah, hopefully it's the right pick. Not gonna lie, I was kind of thinking Ty Washington with this pick, but after like reading a couple of articles, I think Jalen Williams could be a better player than Ty Ty. I think I'm kind of blinded by the blue blood school that Ty Ty went to, so we'll see. So now we're going to Tommy's favorite team in the Chicago Bulls with the 18th pick. Tommy, who do you have your Bulls taking?
My hometown team, man. I can't let them down. I like this pick a lot. I'm going to go with Tari Eason from LSU. He transferred from Cincinnati last year, and then he just absolutely broke out in Baton Rouge this past year. 16.9 points per game, adding 6.5 rebounds a night. Shot 35.9% from three. If that 3-point shooting stands out, I think that he adds so much to this Bulls offense because you have guys like Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Lonzo Ball already there. All three of them, I would say mediocre long-range shooters. DeMar is the mid-range king. Lonzo's great at attacking and pulling up from either in the paint or from the elbow. And then Zach can knock down threes here and there, but he's more of a slasher as well. Tari Eason gives the opportunity to stretch the floor a little bit. He's great in transition. I think that Chicago is a really good transition team when you have high flyers like Lonzo and Zach and DeMar alongside you. And then add in the fact that he's another one of those guys. He's 6'8", but he has a 7'2" wingspan. So that's going to bring a lot. And he also he fits the bill in the sense that he likes getting to the rim to score. But if you add the facet outside the 3-point line to his game, I think this could be a steal at 18.
Yeah, and that's where I saw him going in most of the mock drafts I looked at. I think that's a very solid pick for the Bulls, who they already have a guy like kind of in his position with Patrick Williams, but with him like being injured these last couple of years, maybe you pick a guy who can potentially replace him if it doesn't work out. Even though I know they really like Patrick Williams and I really like Patrick Williams, but
maybe as well.
Yeah, so we'll see. Like we said, 18 isn't someone you're expecting to be like a game changer, but if you can get a game changer, then you'll take it.
No doubt.
Okay, moving on to Minnesota, a team who just made the playoffs for the first time in I think 5 years when they lost to my Rockets. This point on, I'm my knowledge on the players isn't like all the way up there, so I might make some questionable decisions here and there. But at the end of the day, it's a mock draft, and most of the time, mock drafts aren't that great. When you look at our TSTV NFL mock draft,
oh boy,
we got what, 2 picks right?
I don't even know if we got. I think we might have just gotten 1.
Who was the one? I don't even remember.
We didn't even get the first pick right, but I think a lot of people didn't get the first pick right.
Yeah, the first pick was a little up in the air for a while. So, but I think this one we're at least going to get the top 4 right, so I wouldn't worry. So anyway, Minnesota, I have them picking a guard out of Notre Dame, Blake Wesley. The first one and done prospect to come out of Notre Dame ever, which kind of makes sense when you look at the Notre Dame's past, when you look at the guys like Pat Connaughton and guys like that. So he flew under the radar for half the college basketball season and is one of the best passers out of the pick and roll. He has a pretty decent jump shot. I think the Timberwolves could use a guy like him, maybe to replace like Malik Beasley, who Malik Beasley is a good player, but maybe he's more suited for a different team. Go with a guy like Blake Wesley. He a freshman, averaged 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists last year. At the end of the day, you're just looking guys to come off your bench if you're Minnesota, because you pretty much already have your starting 5 intact. So if you can get a guy like Wesley, I think that's a win for them.
Yeah, I agree. He's a really good shot creator. Might see him come off the ball a little bit more to start out, but I think eventually he can sort of work his way in to a lead guard situation. He didn't shoot the best at Notre Dame. As you know, he was a product of a lot of ISO ball just because he really was the forefront of that team. In workouts, says he hasn't been shooting the ball too well. So that might be something to think about. But when you think about Minnesota, you have guys already like D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards in that backcourt to where you don't necessarily need a spot up shooter if you're the Timberwolves. They're already a playoff team. We saw them win basically their NBA championship earlier this year. And I think that adding a guy like Wesley and letting him grow under the veteran wings of D'Angelo Russell, Patrick Beverly, and Anthony
Okay.
Edwards. Yeah, that's somebody to learn from. That's for sure. Um, I think that that could help him a lot, and maybe that's what help. That's what elevates him to the next level.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, they basically won their championship last year when you think about it, when you look at Patrick Beverly jumping onto the stands and, making it
That
look like
was a
they won the
lot of fun.
championship. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I like the Timberwolves. I like their future. Anthony Edwards is a funny guy. I don't know if you watched Hustle, with Adam Sandler movie.
I did. It was a great movie.
Yes, it was. I might watch it again maybe tonight or tomorrow night. That was a good movie.
I don't blame you.
I was really surprised at how many cameos there was in it. So yeah,
There was a
uh,
lot.
yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Spurs. Who I was trying to think of a player on the Spurs who was in that movie, but really the only one that came to mind was Boban Marjanovic, who used to play for the Spurs, who was in the movie. So Spurs, who do you got?
Shout out Bobby. I'm gonna go with the guy that you mentioned earlier, and I'm gonna go with Ty Ty Washington out of Kentucky.
Ty Ty.
Um, I think that especially with this DeJounte Murray news coming out from Bleacher Report and other sources, the guard position is gonna be something that they really need. Um, and another guy who primarily played off ball at Kentucky, but he still proved that he can be a good facilitator and scorer, known for his shooting ability. One of the better shooters in this draft. He can score at will if you give him the opportunity to. And I think that that's going to be something that the Spurs have to be open to doing. I know that Greg Popovich isn't as much of a 3-point shooting coach as he is a move the ball around, get it inside, maybe some mid range here and there. Shot 35% from beyond the arc last year. That's good numbers in my opinion. Almost 13 points a night with 3.5 rebounds and 4 assists. So, they need a reliable point guard. And I think that Ty Ty can give them exactly what they need, especially if DeJounte is headed to Atlanta.
Yeah, definitely. If he moves on to Atlanta, he might be the starting point guard next year if that
Absolutely.
works out. I know they have Trey Jones, who's also there, also a young point guard, but I think at this point I think you would probably start Trey maybe at the beginning of the season, but if Ty Ty like proves that he's a better point guard, you start Ty Ty. But that's thinking a lot in the future. This trade for Johnson Murray hasn't even happened yet, but I think that's a decent pick at 20. Spurs
And
are
I
really
think one more thing, I think he would be great with John Collins if John Collins was to go there. That's my final thing on Ty Ty.
yeah, maybe a good pick and roll threat with him and John Collins. Spurs are really good at drafting guys in this realm, especially like point guards. When you look at Tony Parker, Derek White, who had a really good playoff run this year, DeJounte Murray, who we mentioned was, I believe, the 29th pick in his draft. So
Mm-hmm.
the Spurs are just really good at drafting these young guards and developing them in a way that they can succeed. I think the only one exception you can think of is maybe Lonnie Walker, who hasn't really proven to do anything, but he's more of a shooting guard. Maybe point guards are what the Spurs should be drafting, and I think Ty Ty would be a decent pick.
Absolutely. With this next pick, I really hope you choose who I want you to choose. Just for the culture, it would be
Oh,
incredible.
well, it's your luck because I was struggling with this pick anyway. I didn't really know who to draft here, but since you said it, I gotta go with him. We're going with Nikola Jovic.
Yes.
Yes, out of Serbia. Averaged 11 points and 4 rebounds. He doesn't play like Nikola Jokic, but he's like the big point guard in the big man's body, which I guess is Jokic. But I think he's I don't really know what else to say about him other than he's going to be playing with Jokic. I think that would just be hilarious. I mean, you could just see the announcers, Jokic to Jovic, back to Jokic, and the Nikola
It's
special.
as a broadcaster, that would be my nightmare.
Yes.
Jokic to Jovic and back and forth, man.
Yes. Oh man.
But it would also be so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they'll draft Jovic just because, like you said, that'll be a nightmare people will get very confused. They're like, wait, is Jovic in the game or Jokic is in the game? I don't know. It'd be like if both Bojan Bogdanoviches were on the same team. Like, you know how confusing that would be? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. 21 through 30 is really like a crapshoot. Like at this point, all the mock drafts are off the table. Like at this point, you're just picking like what you need. And let's just say they need a guy who has the same name almost, except for one letter as their two-time MVP. Maybe Jokic will see Jovic come into games like, I like him. I'm staying in Denver since you're having my Nikola brother here.
There you go. Yeah, you're not getting any analysis from me other than the fact that this would be the absolute greatest duo in NBA history if these two teamed up in Denver. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. Now, if I'm the Nuggets, I'm not picking this guy just because it would be really funny. Obviously, you pick the best player, but man, I hope that they see something in him because this would be awesome.
It would. Now I'm really rooting for it. As soon as that Nuggets pick comes out, I'll be like, pick Jovic. Pick Jovic.
Pick Jovic.
Okay.
At 22, we've got. Oh, sorry. You can go ahead and introduce it.
No, I was just gonna say exactly what you said.
Yeah. So we got the Grizzlies by way of Utah. Talk about a franchise that's going downhill. Oof. The Jazz, of course. Not. Did you see their uniforms, man? Those are awful.
Yeah, it was not the best.
Terrible.
It looked like practice uniforms.
They look like they're the knockoff Oregon Ducks.
Are they trying to? Are they trying to make Donovan Mitchell leave?
I think they are. Anyways, we're gonna go with the Grizzlies pick here, and I'm gonna go with another blue blood from Duke. I think this would make him the 4th Duke player drafted. So good job, Mike Krzyzewski, in your last year. Wendell Moore Jr., 6'5" guard forward with a 7.5-foot wingspan. He had a really good season. Some call it breakout. I would just say he had a really good season this year on an already talented team. 13.4 points per game, one of their leading scorers, and then he added in 5.3 rebounds and 4.4 assists per game. Shot 41.3% from the field, and I think that's something that the Grizzlies could really use, another reliable shooter. I know, one of our favorite players, we've talked about him a lot, Desmond Bane, really showed up for them in their playoff run. Shout out to the Horned Frogs, man. I love TCU basketball. He showed up for them really well, and then John Morant has been a reliable but not great three-point shooter. He's more of an athletic guy, likes to get to the rack. But Moore was in the 95th percentile in catch and shoot situations last year at Duke. So he's fits that ideal role of a shooter that Memphis needs. But I also think he embodies the grit and grind culture of Memphis basketball. He reads passing lanes really well, picks up a lot of steals, has a high IQ, and he's incredible on the defensive end as well. I think this is a perfect pick for Memphis, and they can utilize him in so many different ways.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at this Grizzlies team, they are one of those teams that are really good at drafting. When you look at Desmond Bane, drafted 30th overall, they didn't draft Anthony Melton. My Rockets did, but he was a second-round pick, and they picked him up, and he's turned into a great player. They picked Jaren Jackson Jr. at 4 overall back when that was a hot take. So they're really good at drafting these guys. And if you look at Wendell Moore, he seems to fit that Memphis culture. I mean, when you look at his 3-point shot, he looks like Desmond Bane. He averaged 13 points and 4 assists at Duke. Those averages at Duke, when you're not like, he was the 4th best player on Duke, if I had to assume based on the draft order, and he's averaging 13 points. That's really good numbers. I didn't really see him this high on most mock drafts, so I was a little on the side when he's mentioned him. But after looking at his stats and like looking at like his role on the Grizzlies, this isn't the first time the Grizzlies have made a choice like this where people were like, I don't know, and then it ended up working out when you look at Desmond Bane. So I would trust the Grizzlies. They're one of the best up and coming teams in the league. If they can draft a guy like Wendell Moore to come in and play spot minutes, maybe you want to start Zaire Williams this year and bring him off the bench as a backup small forward. I don't really like Dylan Brooks that much. I'm not gonna lie. He was really making me mad in that playoffs that playoff series where he just wouldn't stop shooting the ball. I was like, Dylan, you got John Morant and Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. on your team. Maybe you shouldn't take that shot, but they'll probably play him anyway. He was also drafted by the Rockets and ended up having a nice little career for him in the second round. So maybe I'm just salty about that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just salty that we didn't end up getting that second round steal. He could have been our Chandler Parsons, who's also one of my favorite players. I'm talking way too much about the Rockets. I'll wait till the 26th pick for that. But okay. Moving on to 23, the Philadelphia 76ers. I won't lie to you. I don't know what the heck the Sixers are going to do with this pick. I feel like this guy won't really play, if I'm being honest, just because the Sixers are a winning team at the moment. They're looking to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded this pick, honestly. So I'm just going to pick someone who I seems like a 6-3 pick. And I'm going to go with E.J. Liddell out of Ohio State. I mean, he averaged 19 points and 8 rebounds a game. He was one of the most improved players in college basketball this season. And he's a good three-point shooter for his size. So maybe he can fit into that that Grant Williams style play that they want there in Philadelphia. But like I said, I don't know if he's really going to be playing that much. I mean, I guess he would kind of be the B-ball Paul Reed for that team this season, I guess. There's a guy who just, one of the young players who comes in at the end of the games and fills it up. But yeah, 23, you're the Sixers. You're not really looking for a guy to really come in and do much. But this could be a nice piece to build around. I mean, he's a decent stretch big. I mean, he's 6'7". He's pretty big, 240. So maybe you can see something in him for the future if the James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey experiment doesn't work.
Yeah, EJ Liddell was going to be my pick if I had this one. I thought I read it wrong, and I thought I did have him, so I was getting ready. But I think that when you think about the Sixers, one of the things that they lacked was depth last year. It was really their starting five against the world, and you can't have that happen. So I think that Liddell can be a guy who can take some minutes off the back of Joel Embiid, who does so much for them offensively. And if you have that weight lifted off his back, I think you get a lot better play out of your star player. So I agree with you there on that pick.
Thank you. I wasn't that confident about it, but thank you for reassuring me.
No problem. All right, at 24, this is another one of those picks where it doesn't really matter because they're probably not going to play valuable minutes to start. So I'm going to go with Kennedy Chandler here, the guard out of Tennessee. Speedy guy who's crafty, and that's something that Milwaukee doesn't really have. They have, the Drew Holidays and Chris Middleton, but they're a little bit slower paced compared to Kennedy. So this can be a guy that comes off the bench. Reminds me a little bit of Malcolm Brogdon back when he was in his Milwaukee days. Speedy, crafty, facilitates the offense really well. Still developing his outside shot a little bit, but I think he's one of the better point guards in this draft. And having him come off the bench, taking the weight off the shoulders of guys like Drew Holiday, who struggled a little bit in the playoffs this past year, could really help get the Bucks back deeper into a playoff run once again.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the Bucks was lacking last season was a good backup point guard. You had George Hill playing for them in the playoffs, and you don't really want George Hill at the age of however old he is, 35, 36, to play backup point guard. There. Yeah, you don't want him to be playing the backup point guard minutes. You also have Javon Carter, who's a decent player, but I'm not really sure if you're sold on him, especially since he's probably on like a 1-year deal at this point. If you get a guy like Kennedy Chandler, who went to a blue blood and well, no, he didn't. He went to Tennessee, but he went to like a decent
orange blood.
Yeah, orange blood with Texas. Yeah, you're getting a guy who could be a decent point guard for you. I mean, he's a good passer. I think at 24, which I'll probably say for the rest of these picks, you're probably not getting a guy who's going to make a difference unless you're the Rockets at 26. So, yeah. Okay.
All right. So, I'm really excited about this next one.
Okay. Hit it.
All right, so we got the Spurs by way of Boston. When I think of Spurs, I think of elite defense. This guy embodies elite defense. Kendall Brown from Baylor, one of my favorite players that I got to watch last year. I really like the Baylor team as a whole. I absolutely love Scott Drew. I think he does a phenomenal job in Waco, developing talent. And Kendall Brown is a prime example of that. 6'7" with a 6'11" wingspan. Uh, he could have gone higher in this draft, but some people think that there's a lot to be desired when it comes to his skill set compared to some of the other guys in this draft. I think that defensively, he's going to give you more than a lot of the guys that we have seen taken above him at the forward position in this draft. He's very quick, explosive, likes to get to the rack, and he's extremely athletic. I saw him take off a couple of times, especially when Texas played Baylor in Waco. That was one of his games where he really showed out and proved that he was an elite talent. So I think that adding him onto a team like San Antonio, you're going to be coached by a guy like Greg Popovich, is going to make sure you're extremely disciplined, extremely smart, and very good on the defensive end of the floor. So already a great defender. He's only going to get better, and then the developing offensive game hopefully will come in stride, fitting into that system really well.
Yeah, I didn't realize the Spurs had 3 first-round picks. That's a first for them. So
I have to think it's been a while.
Yeah, so if they do what Tommy says, which we're experts here, so they're gonna do what we say. You get Jalen Duren, great center. You get a point guard in Tata Washington, and now small forward and Kendall Brown. You know, they could pull a Houston Rockets from last year and have 3
That
meaningful.
Could be a young core. That could be a young core.
Yeah, and then if you're trading DeJounte Murray for John Collins, maybe John Collins adds to that. So never know, never know. Okay, moving on to the last pick for my favorite team, who also has 3 first-round picks, the Houston Rockets. And this is a pick that they traded essentially for Christian Wood. I mean, I covered it on Daniel's podcast. This Christian Wood trade was, at first I wanted a little bit more, but at the end of the day, we're getting rid of a guy who wasn't fitting our timeline, who probably wouldn't have given 100% just because he's 26 and looking to play on a great team. And we got cap space basically because none of the guys we got are probably going to be playing minutes. So, guy who might play minutes for us at 26, I have the Rockets picking Marjon Beauchamp. Sorry, came out of the same place that Jalen Green went in G League at night. He averaged 15.7 rebounds and 2 assists. He's 6'7", 175 pounds, so he's going to have to get a little bit bigger, but he's a decent shooter, has good speed in transition, and he has the confidence. He can shoot the shot with its own in his face. So at 26, I feel like of all teams, the Rockets are a team you probably want to go to just because it's a team that you're going to get the most opportunity with. If you go to the Bucks, you're probably not going to be playing that much. If you go to the Heat, you're probably maybe Heat actually. Heat are good at playing their young players. But if you go to the Warriors, you're not going to be playing that much. So if you go to Rockets, I mean, Josh Christopher was in this position last year, although I think he was 20 or 21. And he proved that he could be a really decent player for us going forward. So if you go with a guy like Marjon Beauchamp, and I'm going to have to learn how to say his name. I'm probably going to give him a nickname who goes to our team and call him like Champion or something like that.
MJ
Champ. MJ Champs 2023. I don't know. But yeah, go to the Rockets, make your name for yourself. I don't know.
I definitely agree with you. I think the G League Ignite crew has really put out a plethora of talent here as of recent, and Marjon was one of those guys who showed that he needed to improve on his skill set, and the G League did that just for him. Athleticism really pops out for him when you watch him. Has a lot of versatility at his size, 6'6", with another one of those big wingspans at 7 foot. Gets to the room really well, is very athletic, and can give you a lot on the defensive side of the ball. So I think this is a great pick for Houston.
Yes, hopefully it works out. For the first time in a while, the Rockets look like they have a nice future. So we'll see. So I have two back-to-back picks here. And we have the Miami Heat, the team who was the number 1 seed in the East this year. And I know I said that you probably won't be getting an opportunity if you get drafted to a team this late. I forgot that the Miami Heat was here, as my phone makes some noise for some reason. Let me turn it down. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a guy who a lot of mock drafts had going a lot higher, and it's another guy from G League at Night, 2 in a row, Jaden Hardy, not Jaden Ivey, Jaden Hardy. So at G League at Night, he averaged 18 points, 3 assists. I mean, he did struggle with shot selection, but I mean, he has the ability to make strides at the NBA level. He can shoot step back threes. He could be a guy who can come in and immediately play some minutes for Miami, just because they have a reputation of playing the young guys. I mean, you can pick between him and Gabe Vincent to potentially be the backup point guard. I know Gabe Vincent had his moments, but there's a reason why he was undrafted. So maybe Jaden Hardy can come in and really take over that backup point guard position. Or if you want to play him at shooting guard, he can also play there. So, but like we've been saying, 27 is a hit or miss. He's either going to be a guy who plays substantial minutes or a guy who's going to be at the end of the bench on a team that might win a championship this year. So Jaden Hardy, I know he was high on a lot of people's mock drafts earlier in the season, but maybe he can find a spark in Miami and get hot.
Yeah, I agree. Like we keep talking about these G League and Night guys. They keep on coming up. It's really awesome to see. 6'4", 6'9" wingspan, a pure shooter, and like you mentioned, I think one of the big woes for Miami in this playoff run was the lack of shooting. You have Max Strus, who was here and there spotty, and then Gabe Vincent. That backcourt is not going to win you an NBA championship, with all due respect. So giving Jimmy Butler maybe potentially a guy like Hardy alongside him, who is a reliable shooter, might be another piece to that puzzle that has taken Eric Spoelstra some time to figure out, but he's a great coach. So I think that they'll make the right decision here when it comes to crafting the right team. Pat Riley is a great general manager as well.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see how Jaden Hardy does. Speaking of the NBA Finals, the next pick is a team who won the NBA Finals, the Golden State Warriors. Tommy, who are the defending champions gonna take here?
Not like they need much help or any more talent anyways, but nonetheless, I'm taking Jake LaRavia from Wake Forest here, junior power forward, 6'8", 227, averaged 14.6 points per game to go along with 6.6 rebounds and 3.7 assists, shot 38.4% from 3. And that last number is really all you need to know about him. A really good spot-up shooter who's smart, has a great motor, and he fits into the scheme that Steve Kerr plays with, as he's got great quick decision-making on offense. He's got good defensive instincts, on the defensive side of the ball. That kind of makes up for his lack of athleticism. But I think this could be a guy that, potentially comes off the bench and knocks down a couple of shots for you. Kind of like I hope I say his name right, Nemanja Bjelica.
Nemanja?
Is that right? Nemanja Bjelica, sorry.
Yes.
That's the player that this guy reminds me of. So maybe coming in and having minutes like he does and getting open in the corner, making a couple of plays, trying to get guys open. That's how they could use LaRavia in this. So it's just described. He's described as a Swiss Army knife, and I think that at this point, the way that the Warriors are with the amount of talent they have, anybody that they're going to bring on is going to be a Swiss Army knife in some sense. So Steve Kerr is a smart coach. I'm sure that if they pick him, he'll use him the right way.
Yeah, and that's literally what every mock draft I saw had taken there. So just a guy who can come in, shoot some threes, play that Nemanja Bjelica role. I mean, Nemanja played quite a bit in the regular season. So if they don't bring back Nemanja, they can throw in Jake, and maybe he can come in and just hit some threes.
Yeah, I agree. And then with the last pick, that I have at least for the Grizzlies, I'm going to go with Walker Kessler from Auburn. 11.4 points per game, 8.1 rebounds, shot 60.8% from the field, 7'1", 245 pounds. I see this pick for the Grizzlies as someone who can come off the bench for Jaren Jackson Jr. And just give him valuable minutes. Guy who was really good in the low post. Defensively, he's a good rim protector, and he runs coast to coast with a soft touch on the block. He's got great length, 7'4" wingspan. He's got a really unique skill set, and if I'm not mistaken, he was one of those guys for that Auburn team that had quite a few triple doubles on the year last year, and made the Eagles look like one of the better teams in the country for quite some time. Transferred from North Carolina, so, and when he did transfer, he's arguably one of, if not the best shot blocker in the country, and he continued to prove that last year, averaging 4.6 blocks a game. That's a defensive presence that the Grizzlies could definitely use, and I think that it's another one of those we talked about earlier when I picked Wendell Moore Jr. for him. One of the guys that can fit in a grit and grind system, and I think he would be a great fit.
Yeah, I didn't realize he averaged 6 blocks a game. I mean, you add that to Jaren Jackson Jr., who averaged, I think he led the league in shot blocking. That could be a scary defensively for him. To back up potentially Jonas Valanciunas, or maybe in the future, if you want to start Kessler's defense over Valanciunas, could be a good pick for him. Okay, moving on to the very last pick of not the draft, but the first round. We're not going to go all the way to the second round because we'll be here until midnight. And I don't know about Tommy, but I would rather not do that. So
yeah, I'm good.
The Denver Nuggets are on the clock, and I picked who did I pick with them? I picked Nikola Jovic last time. I was on the clock for Denver, and with Denver potentially getting Michael Porter Jr. back and Jamal Murray back, they could be finals contenders. And if that's the case, I don't really see this guy really playing that much. So if I'm them, I take a risk here, and I'm picking a guy who was a top 10 recruit coming out of high school. I think a reason why he fell was because he went to a small university. He kind of reminds me of Michael Porter Jr. in a sense. Patrick Baldwin Jr. out of Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. 6'9", solid ball handler. Another reason why he fell was because of injuries. He only played 11 games this season after he had a bunch of injuries. I think that the Nuggets can afford to do a risk here, kind of like how they did with Michael Porter Jr. when they picked him 14 a couple of years ago, and it ended up working out kind of where, like, when Michael Porter Jr. was playing, he was playing really well, but he also has injury history, so that was a thing. But if at the end of the first round with the 30th pick, this pick, if any, is not a guy that's really going to play that much. But this guy was a top 10 recruit for a reason. He could find his touch in the NBA. Who knows? Maybe the reason why he wasn't that available is maybe because of the training staff there. Maybe if Denver can, help him out for a little bit, he could come into an NBA body. I don't know. This is a 30th pick. I'm tired. I think that's a good pick for the Nuggets.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I remember reading about this guy when he made his decision. Everybody was very confused. I believe his father's the coach there, or someone.
Yes.
His father's the coach there.
And that's the reason why he decided to go there. It's because his dad's coaching there.
Yeah, talk about loyalty, and I think that personality is something that teams are going to look for, and injuries obviously a major question mark, and then the athleticism and toughness that I mentioned, or I didn't mention, but now I mentioned. It's been a long night.
Yeah.
Athleticism and toughness bring up the question marks, but he can score at all three levels. He's a good shooter. Competition levels as well, I think, come into question a little bit playing at a school like Wisconsin, Milwaukee. But the raw talent is there. It's just the developmental portion that needs to come into play.
Yes. Okay. So that is our mock draft, Tommy. It's been what, 2 hours now?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. So hope if you made it this far, you are a realist.
Much appreciated.
Yes.
Much appreciated.
It reminds me of our NBA talk that we had where we talked, I think, twice the amount of this, and I was exhausted. Now it's 10:20 and I'm exhausted. So
Yeah, we talked for a good 4 hours, I think, just straight going.
yes, that was our NBA playoff preview, which if we're looking back, I had the Suns and Bucks in the finals. I don't remember who you had, but were you anywhere close to being right?
I think I had the Grizzlies. I think I had the Grizzlies in the finals, but I really don't remember. That was so long ago, man.
I know. It seems like I graduated in the span that happened. Like, it's been a long time. So yeah, this is our draft. Tommy, who do you think had the best draft team wise? Put you on the spot.
Oh, I love what I did with the Spurs.
Yeah.
I think that these are three young, solid dudes who fit perfectly into the system. And with the leadership of a guy like Greg Popovich, even if he's only there for a couple more seasons, having that influence around you every day is going to pay off. And, with young talent like this, whoever precedes Popovich is going to be like-minded, I would assume. So I'm sure that these guys are going to be set for quite some time.
Yeah, very solid draft from the Spurs. I mean, you get three guys who could potentially play day one, maybe, if the cards go right. And the Spurs, who are trying to rebuild now, finally, there could be very solid guys. I mean, we look at DeJounte Murray and who they drafted Devin Vassell. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. They have nice little building blocks. Personally, yeah. I guess I'm a homer. I like what I did with the Rockets. I don't know. I feel like at this point, I'm excited with anything. Any young players to come to the Rockets. I mean, you got Paolo Banchero, you got Jalen Williams, and you got Marjon Beauchamp, all three guys who I've heard decent stuff about. I'm just excited to watch the summer league. I'm treating this like this draft has already happened. It has not happened yet, but yeah, I think the Rockets did a pretty good job with the picks they were dealt. That I was dealt, I guess. I think the best value pick. Looking at the value, I mean,
if I can interject, I think it's Jaden Ivey. Like I said, I think he's the best player in this draft. The Magic took two guys at guard the last couple of years, so they don't need one. But man, Jaden Ivey can play. I think he's going to be a star in our league pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree. He was definitely the best non-big man in this draft, and it showed how he was drafted fourth overall. I think if the Kings can get it together, he could be the steal of the draft potentially. And and then if Shadon Sharp can prove that he's worth that seventh pick, he could be solid too. I mean, he might have me eating my words picking Benedict Mathurin over him. Who knows? But yeah, we'll look back at this draft in a year and we'll see how well we did and how wrong we were or how right we were.
We get to look tomorrow and see how right or wrong we were.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll probably upload this. I'll try to upload it tonight. We'll see. And if that's the case, the draft is tomorrow night, and you'll see how well me and Tommy did. So look out for the draft tonight or tomorrow, whenever you're watching this, or maybe if you're watching this in the future, watch out yesterday. I don't know. So thank you, Tommy, for coming on to my first official episode of my podcast. This was, I think, 4 times longer than my first one. So I guess I'm counting this one as my first one. So always a pleasure to have you on.
I had a wonderful time.
Yes, always a pleasure to have Tommy on. Look out for him on College Crossfire on TSB Sports. He's gonna kill it. So you're gonna want to watch it. So
if you
don't watch it, then what are you doing? It's the best sports debate show on the 40 acres. So we'll be talking about.
If you're not watching me, you better be watching Marcus in Midland. So
yes, I want all of you to move to Midland just so you can watch me on the news. But yeah,
exactly.
yeah, College Crossfire, one of my favorite shows. I directed it the last year. It was a blast to make, and I think Tommy's a really good host to continue its legacy. So
Just got to carry on yours, brother. So I hope I can do that.
yes, I know you will. All
Appreciate
right,
that.
it's been a long night, Tommy. Thank you so much for coming on. I don't know when the next podcast I'll do. I'm trying to do this weekly. Maybe Wednesday nights is when I do it because that seems to be when I'm off. So maybe next week I'll do a little off-season preview. Maybe with another guest. Maybe if Tommy wants to come on 2 weeks in a row, I don't know.
I'll come on whenever you want me on.
All right, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think that one will be as long as this one, just because this one's more structured and there was 30 picks we had to do. So
For sure.
anyway, thanks Tommy for coming on. I really appreciate it. And goodbye, everyone.
Good night.